Welcome back everyone. It's been a while, but thank you for tuning into the channel again. Hope you're all doing well. I'm still alive, trying to survive through the life of a Saints fan, and I hope you've all tried your best to enjoy the season so far, because although it's been a disappointing season to date, me trying to be captain positive, there are still plenty of positives to take out of the season, which I will discuss later. So with the bye week this week, I wanted to have a chat with you all about state of St Kilda in 2024, with discussion about 4 key areas: the club as a whole, the playing list, the game plan, and the plan going forward. I've also got a few questions plucked from the Instagram account. I'll have a few websites up on screen throughout the video to help with discussion, but in general this won't be a very visual focused video, so feel free to keep it on in the background as you would with the podcast. I'll insert chapters into the video, so if there's any segment you want to listen to specifically, you should be able to skip to it directly. But with that being said, let's get straight into business. So we'll start with the club as a whole and just a general overview. Obviously in 2024, as we are all aware, we are sitting 14th on the ladder with a win-loss ratio of 5-9, percentage of 92.2%, and then we're probably one of the lowest scoring teams in the comp. I think we're like bottom 5 for that. And then defensively we're still solid, so that's something good to take out of the season so far. But yeah, it's definitely not where we expected or wanted to be in 2024. I guess the percentage reflects that we've been in a lot of games, it just haven't been able to convert, especially early in the season. And this is also skewed by the Bulldogs game, where we got absolutely thrashed, where we just didn't look competent at all. I think we lost by like 60 odd points. So yeah, the percentage is, I guess, sort of a positive if you treat that Bulldogs game as an anomaly. But yeah, still not where we want to be. We're kind of in no man's land right now, the only team with 5 wins at the moment. You can see here, like, we're not as bad as the 3 teams at the bottom. We can argue we're better than Adelaide. Maybe they're about equal with us. But the teams above us, they're definitely better. Like Brisbane, we just lost to them. So, and yeah, like they're the grand finalists from last year. They are a good team. They were just out of form early in the season, but they look like they've built into the season and doing pretty well. Hawthorn look like they're on a massive run right now. They've won 4 in a row. So they're, yeah. And then, yeah, we got destroyed by Melbourne as well. We beat Gold Coast, but Gold Coast just aren't a good away team, and we got lucky that we played them in Melbourne. If we played them in the Gold Coast, I highly doubt we would have won that. So, yeah. These teams above us all clearly better than us. So yeah, we're kind of in this like middle range where we're not as bad, but we're also not as good. I think the low point of the season at the moment is that Bulldogs game where we just got absolutely demolished. We looked lifeless. We got suffocated. We just didn't know how to attack, didn't know how to defend. Their tools were too good for us. I think Norton ripped us apart. So, yeah, hopefully you don't have to think about that ever again. And, like, the result of these bad performances is having an effect on the likes of Josh Battle, who hasn't re-signed with the club yet. I remember in round 2, after our win against Collingwood, there was a really genuine confidence that Battle would resign soon. And it's been, what, 3 months or 2 months, and he still hasn't done so. So, yeah, there's definitely some worries there regarding his signature. There's also a couple of other rumours that I'll talk about later, but yeah, there's clearly an awareness that our list is not good enough at the moment. Brett Ratton got sacked because Bassett thought that our list was good enough and was capable of better things than what Ratton was producing. But at the moment with Ross Lyon, it's not working out. But I don't think I think we have to dig deeper into that. It's not just, you know, Ross Lyon, or it was a bad decision to sack Ratton and then bring in Ross, and Ross is not producing the results that were expected. I think with the transition into a completely new coaching staff, new game plan, it was definitely going to take a bit of time. and yeah, like injuries just haven't helped us at all. We've had a lot of discontinuity throughout the year, throughout the past 2 years actually, and it's just been hard for the team to maintain a starting lineup of our best 22 or close to our best 22. We always have players missing and players like underdone and not at full fitness, all those issues. So it's been tough, but I think like it's not the worst thing. Like I don't think this list is capable of premiership success at the moment. So I'd rather last year we got a taste of finals. That was really nice, but we did end up with Darcy Wilson at pick 18, but usually pick 18 is not as good as those top 10 picks, which we look like getting this year. So it's not a terrible result with the draft system in the AFL, where the lower you finish, the better draft pick you get. So I'm not too unhappy with that, especially considering where our list is at the moment. I'll talk about that in more detail later on in the video, but I think finishing this low isn't a huge problem given our list profile. But yeah, we'll talk about some positives now. I think the high point of this season has definitely been the youth coming through. So obviously we have the likes of Naz. We'll just switch over to the playing list at the moment. So we'll just sort by age. There's another thing with the list. So I'll obviously explain this a bit later, but there is a definite hole in our list at the moment, our list demographic, that we will look to fix in the coming off seasons. So you can see here at the top, we've got some 30-year-olds, 29-year-olds, people in their prime, but in the latter years of their prime. So the likes of Hill, Wood, Crouch, Membry, Sinclair, Marshall. We're already seeing some of those effects coming in. So Ross is not the same player he used to be. Wood, I guess, Wood's still going really well, but Crouch, his knee is giving him a lot of issues. Membry just doesn't look the same as he was a couple years back. Jones looks cooked as well. I won't lie about that. Steele's body has let him down for a couple years now, and I don't know, we'll talk about him later, but at the moment he's not having the impact he should be having. And then the rest, I think this is the rest of them are all pretty solid in that middle age bracket, but obviously this age bracket through here from 25 to 28 is way too thin. We don't have enough players there. We don't have a single 26-year-old. Everyone here is and some of these guys aren't even best 22, like Cordy. I'd argue Bonner is not best 22. Some people argue Howard is not best 22. And then Patton's also not best 22. So just this part of the list really needs a lot of work. So we'll go in a bit more depth into that part of the list. But like I said, the youth at the club right now is really promising. So you can see here, Max King, obviously he's the face of our list build at the moment. He's not performing at the level at the moment, but that isn't completely his fault. I'll talk about that again later on. But I just think that King needs a bit more support. He needs a bit more help from the mids and the halfbacks with the delivery inside 50. So it's not his fault at all what he's going through at the moment with his form slump. And then we've got, I think, everyone down from Higgins. This is a really promising aspect of our list, that we've got a lot of young players who are leading the charge and look set to lead us to our next premiership tilt. Higgins, he's a gun forward. He's underrated. I don't like seeing people criticizing him, because it's really not justified. Sometimes he might miss set shots. He might not look like he's putting in 100% effort, but you can tell that he's got a lot of enthusiasm for the club. He wants to succeed. He's tasted success before at the Tigers, so he knows what it takes. And he's one of those guys, weekly he tries his heart out. Sometimes his execution is a bit questionable, but against Brisbane he kicked 5 goals. He's a leading goal kicker despite missing 3 games, so you can't fault his effort. Clark and Dow have both shown that they're pretty important parts of our midfield, but we'll look to improve that part of the field. Stocker is a good role player, and I think he still has a lot of upside if he lives up to his potential. Sharman has been played out of position, but he looks like he has potential. Henry, Nazaya, Windy, Owens, Caminiti, they're all getting regular game time, not just because they're kids, but because they're genuinely in our best 22. Filippo working on his craft at VFL level, but he looks like with a bit more confidence he could have a real impact in the future. Showermaker made his debut in our most recent game. He looked very comfortable. And then obviously Wilson, the ultimate success story from last year's draft. He's played every game this season. He doesn't look like slowing down. And then, Collard, Hugo, Hasty, they've all had a taste and they've all looked like they've got a lot of upside at the level. The only issue with this this part of the list is that 2022 draft. So I remember when everyone from this draft got drafted, I was really excited to see how they would progress, because I really thought that we were major winners out of that draft, but all of them have just been impacted by injury. So Keeler, he's been probably the most healthy out of all of them. Well, Filippo's obviously the main guy out of there, but out of the other three guys, Keeler's probably the healthiest out of them, and he's showing some good signs. I think Ross is a big fan of him. He's mentioned him in press conferences a couple of times in the same vein as Caminiti and Showermaker, so I think Ross sees a lot in Keeler. Van Ness just unfortunately has been hit by injury his whole career so far, but I think the club will persist with him. And Houghton, well, he's also had some injury troubles, had a decent run at it this year and hasn't really shown much, so it's a bit worrying with Houghton. I thought he would be a good player for us going forward, but he just hasn't come on, perhaps because of that back injury that's been hampering him. But and yeah, Heath also, I'll talk about him a bit later in detail, but I've got good hopes for Heath as well. So yeah, that's the list in general at the moment. So yeah, definitely the high point of the season is the youth, and the young core is the focus of this list. So we saw on the socials team, on the social accounts, that there was that day in the life with Windy and Mitch, and all the young boys are gathered for dinner at Mitch's house. So I think Keeler was there, Caminiti was there, Heath, Van Ness was there, and then obviously Windy and Mitch. I think a couple others as well. So it looks like those boys have a really good relationship, and I think they'll definitely take us forward in the future. Yeah, in general, like, I think we have an opportunity this year to really define our fortunes for the next decade. I think it's a really crucial off-season that we nail this, especially with Tasmania coming in a few years. We need to nail the draft. We need to nail the trade period, because the plan all along, I think it was mentioned by Bassett, that 24 and 25 would be about hitting the draft, and 23 as well, and then 23 and 24 would be about hitting the draft, and then 25 and 26 would be about trade period and free agency, and then from that point onward it would be about investing in the premiership in the short term. So at the moment, this year, we're still in the phase of drafting and building that young core up. I think we've done well so far through the draft, as I've spoken about earlier, but we still have work to do. We need to nail this year's draft. There's a few kids that I'm very interested in for us to draft this year, and yeah, I think I've got a hypothetical plan that I'll talk about later, but yeah, like, the point is, like, this is really important that we nail this year's period, because it could have a flow-on effect to the years later. Like, if we don't do well in this year's draft, it might mean we have to invest more in the draft next year, which would then affect our ability to lure some trade targets, whatever. So yeah, there's a flow-on effect there. At the top, I think we're fighting. Like, Bassett, there's been news about Bassett, talking to the AFL about the quality of the father sons and academy bidding system. He's the main guy in the comp who's calling for that to be a bit more fair. So I like seeing that. It means that we're happy to, or Bassett is willing to do what it takes to promise us a successful future. So hopefully he's successful in that bid, and the other clubs get messed over with their bidding this year and in the coming years. I think Ross Lyon has the boys in good order. I think everyone's very disciplined. We've heard the word coachable quite a lot. Whether that's a good thing or not remains to be seen. In the long run, I think it should be a good thing, but at the moment, it does seem to be impacting the game plan a bit. A lot of time off during weeks is a bit interesting, but it did seem to work last year, so I don't think that would be the reason for our drop in performance this year. And just as an outsider looking in, I obviously I'm not associated with the club, but the culture does seem a bit weird. Like amongst the young boys, it looks extremely positive, but at the top, with the likes, well, I won't name names, but some of them just look a bit uninspired at times this year. It's probably because of the performances, and there's a lot of pressure on the leaders to turn our form around and deliver results. So I think that could be a reason for why some of them look a bit negative at times and a bit passive. So hopefully, it's just a results thing, and once our results turn, the vibe with the leaders looks a bit more positive. So that's like a general overview of the club. There's a lot to talk about. I think generally, like, I'm gonna be a bit more of a positive, have a bit more of a positive outlook on the club. I think there's a lot to look forward to. There are obviously some issues at the moment and some problems that we'll look to address, but in general, I'm pretty satisfied with the direction of the club. But I'll go into a bit more detail on the next few parts. So I'll talk about the game plan next. So this has been a big discussion point for all Saints fans, and I'm sure within the four walls as well at the club. Like, does this game plan stack up? I think it does, but I know there's definitely a lot of flaws with it at the moment. So why does it look bad? It looks bad to the eye because we play slow at times. We are unable to score. Scoring is what makes footy fun to watch, and we just can't do it. But I don't think that's a problem with the game plan. I think it's a problem with execution. We don't have the personnel to deliver this sort of game plan at the moment. We have the running power, that's definitely there, and that's why we can defend and get forward and are the number one scoring team from the defensive half. But I think in the forward half we don't have the skill yet, and I think that's due to the personnel in the midfield. So at the moment we've got Steele, Clark, Windy and Dow. None of those guys you can really say are elite ball users. Clark is probably the best one out of them, and like, he hasn't had enough time to establish himself yet. He's had too many injuries. So in that midfield, it's just it's just a lot of contested stuff, but there's no polish there, which is, I think, what we're looking for in the draft and the trade period in the years to come. We're obviously targeting LDU, Luke Davies-Uniacke, to fix that kind of thing, but even he isn't like considered one of the best ball users in the comp. Like, he's a gun on baller, he wins the ball, he has bursts out of the midfield, and I think from what I've seen of him, like, his ball use is good, it's just not considered elite. So whether he does fix this problem, well, first he has to come across, and that's already a pretty tough ask, but if he can fix that, I think it will have a bigger positive impact than you'd think at face value, because it does fix it does have a flow-on effect. Like, if he can deliver the ball properly, and it frees up the rest of the midfield to not focus too much on wanting to overdo their kicking, overdo their ball use, and try to hit targets that they just aren't capable of hitting. It lets them focus more on their strengths, which is winning the ball, and let LDU, use the ball a bit more, feed it to him. And then obviously when he delivers it inside 50, we'll get more marks inside 50. Likes of Max King will lift in their form when he has someone who's actually good at kicking, delivering it to him. So there's a lot of flow-on effects there with the personnel. I think continuity with the best 22 is also an issue at the moment. Like, Crouch has been out all year. He was our best midfielder last year in a top 8 year as a team, and he's been out the entire season, so he's been a huge loss. I don't think we can underestimate that. Obviously, Dow and Clark have missed a lot of the season. As soon as they've come in, like, our midfield has looked a lot more competent, and it's allowed Sinclair to go back to half-back, and our attacking chains from half-back have looked a lot better. Our ball movement looks faster and it looks more polished, with Sinclair able to push up from half-back and not kind of be trapped in the midfield. And then, like, in the back line, like, Dougal has been unable to have a consistent run at it. I think that's having an underestimated effect on our defense. I think, in my opinion, like, he's still a very important player to us. He does do some stupid stuff, like spinning around and turning the ball over, but since he returned from his hamstring injury, I think he got rid of that in his game. Like, I didn't really see him make any stupid errors. I think a lot of people are still criticizing him based on what they've seen in the past and not really what they've seen in the last month or so, because he hasn't really made any crucial errors. Like, none of the goals we've conceded are directly his fault. And like, I don't think we can criticize him on that. I think he's been very solid before his injury. And then I think Naz, like, missing that one game, and then Sinclair missing the start of the season. Webster missing a lot of the season as well. Webster's really important to us as well, being able to lock down on that medium defender. We don't really have anyone else on our list capable of doing that. Like the likes of Charlie Cameron, Tom Papley, etc. Not having a matchup on them theoretically would hurt. Cameron didn't really hurt us last week, but I think part of our defensive problems is just that lockdown element to the medium forwards, because Bonner doesn't cut it as a defender. He doesn't defend very well. He's just more of an attacking halfback, and obviously Naz has defensive issues as well. It's just been a bit tough there. Stock is trying to step in, but then he got injured as well, so he's another one that we've missed in the back line too. So just a few role players that aren't the stars of our team, but they are really important to our structure. And then in the forward line, Butler's missed a lot of the season. Higgins missed with suspension. Them two have a really underestimated importance to our team as well. It's no surprise they're picked every week. Butler is so important to our pressure, and he also chips in with a few goals as well. And then Higgins, I spoke about him earlier. His ability to hit the scoreboard is probably unmatched in our club. Like, we don't have anyone else who can hit the scoreboard like he does. We have King, but he relies on delivery from further up the ground. But Higgins creates his own goals. Like, he leads, he works hard, and he creates his own opportunities. So he's very important to us. The game plan, I think, we're still tinkering and experimenting with the game plan. There's a lot of learning still to do with this list, what they're capable of. We saw against Brisbane, we tried to play more attacking, but then our defense leaked a lot. So, we need to find the right balance there. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a fan of the game plan. I think what's going well is, firstly, the effort and the consistency in that space. I remember before Ross Lyon came in, like there was so many weeks where we'd go in like, oh, hopefully the boys put in a bit of effort this week, a bit of tackling pressure, and then they wouldn't turn up, and it was just a shocking watch. Like sometimes we'd look like the best team in the league, and on the other weeks we'd look like the worst team in the league. It was so inconsistent, and it was all on effort. But now we're seeing that effort week in, week out. I think that's something that's really positive for us. I mentioned as well, we're the best ball movement team from the back half in the comp. So to be able to do that, I think we're matching Sydney in that area. It's all just about that forward half connection. We are improving in this space. Like there was, I think a few weeks ago at training, there was a drill that was just completely focused on the way we delivered inside 50, trying not to kick it from outside 70. So there's a 50-meter arc, then there's 70 meters. So anything, if you're outside the 70-meter mark, don't deliver the ball inside 50. Make sure you find a target inside between 50 to 70 meters, so then they can either kick it in deep or they can spot up a target, leading target, in a shallow 50 entry. So that's something the boys were working on, and I think we saw that come to full effect against Brisbane. We cracked the ton. We saw a few kicks where normally we'd just bomb it in, but we did lower our eyes, hit up a target between 50 and 70 meters before they went in deep or they hit up another target, because you're closer into the 50, you have better vision, better peripherals, and you see the forward line a bit better without without an extra layer of Brisbane defense in front of you. So yeah, I think that's improving week by week. It's a weekly project. You can't fix that in 1 week. Like it's a thing that we're going to have to work on for the rest of the year. But it's good to see that improving. Midfield is also improving. We smashed Brisbane, one of the best midfield sides in clearances in the first quarter, although we just didn't convert from it. But yeah, it's good to see that our midfield is doing it against the best in the league. So that's promising. And I do think it is a sustainable game plan. I think it's been mentioned multiple times in the media that defense is what wins premierships. All the premiership teams have like top 6 or something defenses, and so yeah, we can be in that category once we find that right balance with our game plan. And once we do that, get the personnel in to deliver inside 50, fix our execution, I think we can definitely spike very easily. But yeah, the next steps is obviously just to find that right balance and ensure that we keep putting in the effort. Like when you put in this much work and the results aren't coming, in anything you do, can be very discouraging at times, and then you just like want to give up. But hopefully the boys don't feel any sense of that attitude. Hopefully they just keep working on it week by week. They do seem like the types to keep putting in the effort, so that is looking good for us. But yeah, I think that's probably it for the game plan. Just in summary, like I think it's definitely fixable. It's not a Ross Lyon issue. It's a personnel issue, in my opinion. So we just have to see how the boys progress and what changes we make to the list in the off season. We'll actually talk about the list right now. So this is the third part of the video, which is the list. So we have 20 out of contract players at the end of this year, so that's almost half our list. There's going to be a lot of list turnover again. Last year I think we lost about 10 or so players and brought in the same amount. So last year was already a lot of turnover, and this year I think it'll be a similar number. We'll obviously re-sign a big portion of that 20 unsigned free agents, and then a few others will leave. So currently in talks, off reports, Battle is obviously in talks, Hill in talks for a 3-year contract, I think, so they'll take him to when he's 33. I don't think that's a silly contract. I think Hill looks like he could go on for a long time. he doesn't play a very contested role, so his body hasn't really, I guess, how do I, like, depreciated? I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, he looks like he could play on until 35. He's just a running machine. He hasn't taken too much of a beating with his body, so I think he can hold up. Webster also in talks. I talked about his role earlier, very important to our team. Butler in talks as well, another role player, and then King, I think he's out of contract in 2026, but we are already looking at extending him because he's a very important part of our rebuild, even though he's not performing at the moment. Yeah, he's still probably the face of our rebuild. If he can turn his form around, if the team can help him turn his form around, then we'll see a spike in performance. So those are the 5 players I think who are in talks at the moment. We'll have a look at the other out of contract players for St Kilda. So McLennan, Patton, Sharman, Butler, Howard, Keeler, Hayes, Van Ness, Webster, Battlestocker, Wood, Allison, Hall, Heath, Houghton, Bonner, Burns, Ross, Membry, Campbell, Jones. I think Wood is in talks. Yeah, I think I might have missed him when I was looking back on all the news, but I think Wood 1 or 2 years. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think everyone else hasn't really started yet. Stocker might be. I think Stocker is pretty safe. Like we'll probably re-sign him to 1 or 2 years. So I think we'll talk about the BNF first. So the list at the moment, it's very dependent on the older guys. So if we just reorder, yeah, we're still ordering by age. Like our most important players are Hill, Wood, Sinclair, Marshall, Steele, Wilkie, Battle to an extent, King obviously. So a lot of these guys are in this top bracket who, in our next premiership push, I talked about our plan, which is to plan for a push in 2026. By that time, a lot of these guys will be about 30, 31. So they'll be coming towards the end of their careers. So we need to make sure that we find the next crop of these types of stars, which is why I said earlier that this part of the list is a massive issue. The fact that we have a whole of players in their prime from 24 to 27. This is something we have to fill in. So in our best 22 at the moment, I have to redo this. I did this yesterday and I think it's lost it. So, but yeah, this is our best 22 at the moment. So yeah, you can see like a lot of these guys are older. So Howard, Wilkie, Webster, and then Wood, Steele, Hill, they're all beyond 28 years old. Forward line is pretty youthful. Marshall's 28. These guys are all pretty young. So yeah, our back line and our wings, there's a couple of aging stars there, but I think the wings should be pretty easy to replace. Like it's more of a role than like a position for stars. Our defense is going to be an issue, so Howard, I think he's going to be replaced earlier than the others. Wilkie obviously is a star. He started his career late, so I think he might be able to play a bit later, like Rampy has for Swans. And then Webster, I think, would be replaced as a role player a bit earlier as well. But yeah, we've got Showermaker to come in to this defense in the future. The Sharman versus Campbell versus Heath versus Hayes debate is going to be very interesting to see. I hope we see Heath and Marshall form a duo in the latter half of this season. With Campbell missing out on VFL with like travelling emergency and AFL duties, Heath playing as a solo ruck, he's really improved a lot. Like his running was a big issue at the start of the season, but he's clearly worked a lot on that, and he's been able to run out games a bit better than he has in the past. And he's been monstering ruckman in the twos. Like he's been getting 30 plus hit outs, 40 hit outs, almost like 15 plus disposals. Like Rowan Marshall type numbers, and he's been usually fantasy points are a decent indicator of like their statistical impact, and Heath has been getting over 100 fantasy points like every week in the VFL as a solo ruck. And for context, like Marshall's averaging around 100 at AFL level. Gawn is averaging about 110. I think English is around high 90s, around 100. So Heath is definitely doing very well at the lower level when he has the opportunity to play as a solo ruck. So hopefully he's coming along better than we all think there. But yeah, obviously there's areas to improve in this team. So Dow, Windhager are solid, but they're not A grade, and we need A graders in there. So I spoke about LDU before. He probably comes in to replace someone like a Dow. Steele is obviously a lock in this midfield. I do have doubts over Steele in the second half of the year. His knee is clearly hampering him, so I don't know if there will be a debate about whether to send him in for surgery and just like rest him, I guess, for the rest of the season and give our kids a bit more of an opportunity, because our season's already done. And I think if we lose against Port Adelaide after the bye, like we'll see some decisions that are clearly looking forward to the next years and not so much this year. So yeah, I think a decision will be made on Steele. I don't think they will do it, but personally I think it would be a alright idea in a naive outlook anyways. And then yeah, fullback, Howard, Webster, Wood replacements. So yeah, I think those are the main issues with the team right now. So like, I've changed these. So these are the positions that we'll need to replace. So fullback, back pocket. I think Hill will play on for a few more years, but Wood I think is coming towards the end. Even though he's still performing, I think there'll be a pretty big drop off. Marshall we don't really need to replace at the moment, but it's just these guys. These three positions are the main issues, and then you obviously through the midfield. So yeah, fullback, back pocket, and wing. So those are like the positional needs at the moment. I think we do have replacements. Well, Cordy is a short-term fix for Howard, but I mean, if we're going to play Cordy, we might as well keep Howard. He's clearly a better player. With Cordy out of form at the moment. But hopefully, like, we can get like a cheap defender. Van Ness would be ideal here, but who knows what's going to happen with him. Webster's replacement, obviously there's Hasty, who could play as a lockdown back pocket, but he still needs to fill out physically. I think Keeler could do a role there as a lockdown, even though he's a 199 centimeter key defender. He's very agile and could play a similar role to Mac Andrew at the Suns, locking down on smalls but then being able to intercept as well. And then McLennan is also, I think there was couple months ago, Jake Batchelor, the VFL coach, said that McLennan would be ready to step into AFL level if required. But I think there's still question marks around his ball use. He's very good at locking down and defending, but just sometimes he makes a couple of skill errors, some poor decision making. So that's something he has been working on this year and getting better at. And then obviously Patton, he was the one that we thought would be able to replace Webster in the long term, but that broken leg has just ruined his career. Hopefully he can get back to similar levels. He has looked pretty good at VFL level recently, like accumulating numbers and being able to defend, but I don't know why with Webster out we didn't bring him in. I think we just prefer Bonner at the moment, who is another option there, but I just doubt him defensively. There was a contest at centre half back against Brisbane in our most recent game. It was a 1v1 versus Hugh McCluggage, who I think is shorter than him and probably not the most physical guy in the comp, and Bonner just got absolutely wrecked, and he conceded a goal. So like that just tells the story of Bonner's defending. So yeah, question marks over him, but back pocket is very much up for grabs. Wingers, I think we're pretty safe for that. I think Wilson will slot straight into here, but I think we still do need a tall winger for our setup. Our defensive structure depends a lot on our winger getting back to cover. So Wood as like a key position sized player, he's able to get back as a 7th defender and intercept, but Wilson doesn't have that sort of height. I think that's why Hasty has been tried there as a winger, hopefully to replace Wood, but yeah, we'll just have to see about that, who can step up to replace him. I think this is more of a trade acquisition type of replacement. I think Jared Berry from the Lions could have been solid for this, but I don't think we'll end up pursuing him. But yeah, I think everywhere else is pretty settled for the next 5 to 10 years, I guess. Battle is going to need to be replaced, maybe, if he decides to leave, which I think is pretty likely at this point. But yeah, we'll talk about the trade period and the draft period in general. I think we'll talk about them together. I originally planned to talk about them separately, but I think we'll just put them into one discussion. So, trade period. So I talked about the plan before, about 2023, 2024 being draft, and 2025, 2026 being trade and free agency. So we won't see any significant trades this year. We might see a couple of Paddy Dow type trades where you just get a player for cheap. Hopefully they can fit into our list very well. There's been a bit of talk about Jordan Butts. Nothing official, but just amongst fans, some chatter about him. I think he'd be a good addition, especially if Battle leaves. I'm not sure the price of him. It could be a 3rd rounder, could be a 2nd rounder. Depends on how the Crows value him, but the Crows have a logjam of key defenders. Like they have, I'll try and remember off the top of my head. They've got Murray, Michaelani, Worrell, Curtin, Borlase, Hinge, obviously Butts. So that's 7 defenders who can play either as a 3rd tool, 2nd tool, or 1st tool. I think that's it. 7, maybe another one, but 7 defenders who are capable of playing AFL level is a lot, and someone's got to miss out. Butts has been getting a lot of game time, but I think he's one Adelaide won't be too mad about letting go. Butts is from Victoria, 198 centimeters, I think. There's a couple of like, I think the AFL website has him as like 195, and then his draft profile has him as at 198, and then his Google has 198 or something. So not sure what to trust there, but he does look like he can lock down on the big key forwards, and he has done so the past couple of years. So he's someone we could get for cheap to replace Battle, in which case we'll have Howard, Wilkie, and Butts. He's around, I think he's 24, 25 next year, so he would be in that good profile that I talked about, where we have a couple more players in this sort of range. He's not a star player, but he does have potential to become a very solid key defender at AFL level. So yeah, he'd start in for Battle if Battle chooses to leave. And then that also, so since he's a fullback, that also frees up Howard to play more as a centre halfback. So we remember in 2020 when Carlisle and Howard formed a very not potent, but like a very solid partnership in defence. That was when Howard was playing as a centre half back. He came, I think, 3rd in our best and fairest. So clearly a very top performer when he was playing in that role. So I think Butts would allow Howard to do that. He's currently struggling playing as the number 1 fullback. We can clearly see that. He's dropped in form ever since Carlisle left, and we haven't found a Carlisle replacement. So with Howard playing the 2nd tool, I think we can see an improvement in him. So yeah, I think like to let Battle go for hopefully band 1 compensation, which would be a pick 6, and then trade a cheap pick like a 2nd or a 3rd round pick to Adelaide to get Butts in, to also then free up Howard to play the Battle role I think it could work. Without going into too much detail into that trio with Wilkie as well, I think it could work. Yeah, definitely. Regarding other trades, I don't really think we'll see anything else. Maybe a backup ruckman. I think Campbell is very important to our team. He's not the best player, but he's culturally a big part of it. So I don't know what sort of decision the coaches will make on him. Whether he stays or leaves remains to be seen. I think I'd probably... Oh, it depends. I think it depends on whether we can identify a target at trade and draft. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. Regarding other trades, I don't think we'll do anything else very important. Maybe some other depth players, some mids maybe, but I don't think mids will be too much of a priority. In terms of free agents, Stengel obviously is on our radar this year. 800k a year over what, 5 or 6 years is the offer we have in front of him. He looks like he is a genuine chance to leave Geelong. Apparently he doesn't like the lifestyle there, so that's obviously a big factor. He's just not vibing with it, I guess, and he wants money as well, which is a bit of a worry with a trade target. Like, what happens when they do actually get that money? Do they have any more motivation to keep improving or to even just maintain the level? At face value, he's a good addition to our forward line. We have Butler, we have Higgins. I spoke about their importance, and to add Stengel to that would be very dynamic, but yeah, it's obviously just about whether he can maintain that level to be worth the 800k per year price tag. Yeah, that's a bit of a worry for me. And then, but he did get some mid time. So we're recording this on the Saturday. Last night, Carlton versus Geelong. He did get some midfield time later in the game. So he got some centre bounces and he looked pretty good. He put some pressure on. Used the ball okay, so that could be something that Sauce and Gubby are thinking about going forward with Stengel, which may justify the 800k per year they want to pay him, to kind of be like a Shy Bolton type of player, which I think would justify the price tag, but whether he can actually do it is another question. And then I think that's probably it for the trade period this year. But in the years to come, LDU obviously top of our list next year. And then Andy Brayshaw from the Dockers also someone we will consider. But I think Cal Toomey said on Gettable that Brayshaw definitely won't leave this year, and he's very, very unlikely to leave next year. So I think I'm crossing him off the list. I don't think we'll get him. I think he'll stay at Freo. But yeah, LDU is obviously a very live chance to leave next year, but there's still a lot to play out. Still another year to go, so we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Yeah, obviously McCluggage was a target this year, but he's re-signed, so obviously not getting him. I do think we'll target someone else, probably next year. Not sure who it is, but we'll obviously get a clue closer to next year into the season. We'll see who we might be targeting. But yeah, I think we'll move on to the draft period now. So there's quite a few midfielders in the top end of the draft. This is a midfield draft. We have pick 5 at the moment. Let me just check that. I think we have pick 5 at the moment. If we lose battle, we get pick 6, and that would mean we have 5 and 6. I think North Melbourne are pretty likely to either trade their pick or take Josh Smiley. I think Richmond will take O'Sullivan, West Coast Trainer, or Smith, Jagger Smith. Adelaide will probably take Sid Draper if they don't trade out. I think they're very keen on trading their pick, so we'll have to wait and see on that. We've met with a midfielder called Sam Layla a few times. I think Sauce has met with him a few times already, so we seem to have pretty heavy interest in him. Some draft experts have compared him to Dustin Martin. He's 187 centimeters. He's a midfield bull. He's good overhead. Has a good burst of speed. Wins contested ball. Last weekend he had 42 disposals against St Mary's and I think APS. And I thought their team lost by like 60 points, but he had like 12 clearances, a couple of goals as well. So he's a goal kicker. So goal kicking mids are very rare amongst our list, and I think Layla would be a good addition to our future. I think he complements our midfield really well. Imagine a future with Filippo, Layla, and then like Windy, Owens, Henry all rolling through there. That would definitely be very exciting to watch. So Layla is probably the top target. Jagger Smith, also a Butters-like type of midfielder. Small in size, small in stature, but wins the ball, knows where to position himself, and has had 40 disposal games, 50 disposal games in the under-18s championships. So, I think it was Coates Talent League, but against players of his age, he's dominating them in terms of accumulating the ball. So he's one to watch as well. Sid Draper as well. He kind of reminds me of Horn Francis, South Australian. Bursts from stoppage, a lot of speed, wins contest. Hasn't had a very exciting, or hasn't had the best start to the season, but has shown signs. He's had a bit of an injury interrupted start. So we'll just have to see how he goes. I think Draper, Smith, and Layla are probably the main contenders for our top pick. I think whichever one falls down to our pick, we'll probably take them. But yeah, still a lot to play out. Still half the season to go in the under-18s. There's going to be a lot of changes to that top end, especially in such an even and deep draft. There's going to be a lot of shifting around in the rankings. I hope ultimately we take at least 2 first-round picks into the draft. How we get them remains to be seen. Battle's departure potentially. I think Battle is 65% chance to leave. His manager didn't really insert me with much confidence when he spoke on Gettable. He was talking about how there's a lot of factors. The fact that Battle just had a child. They have to weigh up a lot of things. So that just doesn't sound good at all. So I won't be surprised if Battle leaves. I think he probably will. That's that. That's just how football goes, I guess. So, Battle will probably leave. I think it's not the worst thing. If we want to keep him, we're going to have to offer around 850k per year for a third tall defender. I don't think that's worth it, especially since we have Showermaker coming through. We have Keeler coming through as well. And then we also have short-term cover with Sharman able to play that position. And then Howard and Cordy could also have a duo there with Wilkie too. So we do have options to replace him, both in the short term and the long term. So I don't think it's a massive issue, especially if we get pick 6 out of it in a midfield draft that directly solves a need in our list. I wouldn't be too mad about Battle leaving. Obviously it is a loss in the short term, but we're not contending anyways right now. Like, he would be part of our next premiership push, but we can also take the time to develop an even younger prospect to then be a prime mover in our next premiership tilt. So not a big deal to me, especially if it opens up 900k in the cap and then also gives us a top pick. So that's what I think about Battle. And then I think that's it for the list. I've talked in a lot of detail about it. I've been rambling a bit, so we'll move on to the last part of this video, which is the overall plan. I've touched on it, a lot of elements on it already, but in general I think it is at the moment to play the kids. So Ross Lyon's already talked about playing Hasty, Collard, Hugo Garcia, Schoenmaker, and then he's also mentioned Keeler, who hasn't debuted yet, but I think we will see him at some point late in the season. I think he played Burns at the start of the year, who wasn't able to prove himself. He's been playing Caminiti a lot of this season, so clearly Caminiti is a big project that Ross wants to pursue. He does look good. He's got good hands. He just needs to keep improving his craft. Filippo will get another opportunity late in the season, you'd imagine. He's progressing well at VFL level, winning 20 plus touches, double-digit clearances or high single digits, like 8 clearances, and then tackling as well. So Filippo is doing really well in the contest. He just needs to be able to accumulate a bit more on the outside. And then also, like, in games where Crouch is playing, Crouch steals a lot of the contested ball, so it does impact Filippo's impact himself. So that is a bit of a quirk in Filippo's development. But yeah, I think with 20 out of contract players, we do need to explore the complete depth of our list. Our list is our season's already gone, I think, pretty much. So we might as well take the time to really assess all of our options. Like, I want to see debuts to the likes of McLennan, Keeler. I think Keeler is a very good opportunity. O'Connell can probably wait a bit. He only just crossed over at the start of this year, and I think we'll maybe give him a chance next year. Heath, I definitely want to see Heath at some point. Allison just hasn't shown much at VFL level. Getting single-digit touches not really having an impact on the game, so I'd probably be happy just straight up to list him, not give him too much of a look in at the moment. Hopefully he proves me wrong though later in the season. Sharman, I want to see him get an extended run as a key forward in the team. He was out of form at the start of the season, but that was because he just had no continuity in any position. He was playing wing, he was playing defense. Like, put him in one position and just let him thrive in his natural position. So yeah, I want to see Sharman there. Hopefully Patton gets another opportunity as a defensive lockdown defender. He's been playing a bit of wing, a bit of midfield as well, but in recent weeks he's been playing full-time defence in the VFL, so hopefully he can get back to that 2020 form where he was just exceptional, one of our best role players. So yeah, I'd like to see that. But yeah, so definitely explore the list a bit more for the rest of 2024, and then in the trade and draft period we need to transform our list. So we need to go younger. The likes of Membry, Ross, Campbell, maybe Crouch, Jones definitely, Hayes, potentially Bonner, Cordy, probably not, but those two will be in conversations. Those types of players, we need to get them out of our list. They're not best 22, they won't make an impact in our next premiership, so I think just get rid of them. They're not really making an impact, and give the kids a bit more of an opportunity while we still can before our list genuinely goes into premiership contention. Just get as many games as we can into the kids, and yeah, so that's the general plan. So I did touch on a plan that I had, a hypothetical one, so I'll talk about that now, and that'll probably finish this video, and then I'll talk about some questions. But yeah, my hypothetical plan in general is just the way I see the list at the moment is that there are 3 tiers. So there's the senior leaders who are about 28 and plus. There's the core, which is around here, 23 to 27-ish, 28. And then there's the youth, so that's the teenagers, and then up to like 22, so up to Henry or King at 23. So yeah, that's the 3 segments of our list. I've spoke about this middle part, the core, being a bit too weak, so we'll definitely add to that. So with the plan of a premiership tilt from 2027, 2026 beyond. On December 31, 2026, Brad Hill will be 33, Steele will be 31, Wilkie will be 31, Sinclair will be 31 and 32 in 2 months, Marshall will be 31 and Butler will be 30. So once we hit the window, we're going to have a lot of these guys coming towards the end of their careers. I don't think that's a bad thing. I do think that they can play a role similar to... I'm going to be comparing this list a lot to the 2023 Collingwood Premiership winning side. So in their team they had Pendlebury, Howe, Mitchell, Sidebottom, Hoskin Elliott, all above 30 in their flag tilt, all significant components of that flag tilt. And I think that's what Hill, Wood, Steele, Wilkie, Sinclair, Marshall, Butler can all be to the team at that point. So it's definitely not an issue that they'll be getting on, but it is about getting that core in, which is what we're missing. So the key components of the 2023 Collingwood flag was Josh Dacos, Nick Dacos, John DeGoey, Crisp, Myercheck, Darcy Moore, Nathan Murphy, Isaac Quainer, Braden Maynard, and Jamie Elliott to an extent. He's kind of in between those two age groups. But this is what Higgins, King, Naz, Owens, Windy, and Henry are to us. Although some of those guys are still in the youth age group, they are what this core of the list needs and has already. We need more added to that. So Clark, Dow, Stocker, Sharman hopefully can elevate themselves to this level, but we can't guarantee that. It's unlikely that all of them will be able to make it to that level. So we're going to have to top that part of our list up, which is why we're targeting LDU. I'm not sure exactly how old Luke Davies-Uniacke is. I think he's 25, yeah. So he's 25 this year, so he'll be 26 next year. So he's fitting perfectly in to this demographic. It'll be here. So he's 25 at the moment, younger than Clark, older than Dow. So yeah, right in that sweet spot. Still not a 26-year-old, but it's not really, that doesn't really matter too much. We just need a bigger volume of players in this age group. I think Stengel is around 26, 25, so he'd also be in this age group too. But I think we'll only get Stengel if Battle stays, so that would inflate this area a lot more, which is the ideal scenario. So yeah, adding 2 stars, I guess, one All-Australian and then one up-and-coming midfield star, that would boost this area a lot in our list. I do think there are probably a couple too many of those older types at the moment, which is why I'm okay with the potential Marshall departure. So I haven't spoken about that yet, but there's been a couple of whispers about Marshall potentially feeling unsettled at the club, not very happy with some things, probably with the results. So I don't think he will leave, but it is a chance apparently. So we'll hear more about this in the coming month or the coming weeks. I think Mitch Cleary is trying to find some more information about it, but in general, I think it's something that could be on the cards, but is very unlikely. But like hypothetically, if Marshall was to leave, I wouldn't be too mad about it because he's 28. He's one of these older types, one of these senior leaders that I've labelled. We've seen in past premiership teams that ruckmen aren't very important to having a successful team. Like the past premiership teams, 4 of the past 5 haven't really had A-grade All-Australian rucks. Max Gawn being the exception for Melbourne. He's a generational star. But the others have been recycled players from other teams. So we've seen Darcy Cameron, who was recycled from Sydney. Nain Curvis also recycled from Sydney. And then Stanley recycled from us, ironically. But the point is that we don't need an A-grade ruckman to win a premiership. And we have that. And we need to top up a specific area of our list that isn't suitable, which isn't in Marshall's like area. So to lose him for maybe a top 5 pick or 2 late first round picks, I wouldn't be too mad about that. But we do have to find a replacement for him. Ned Moyle looks like he's going to re-sign with the Suns, so he's off the table. But there are plenty of depth ruckmen around the comp. Off the top of my head, Lloyd Meek moved from Freo to Hawthorn, and he's looked pretty good there. And that was only 2 years ago. We've seen Kieran Briggs. He was very much on the fringe at GWS, and he suddenly turned into one of the comp's best ruckmen. Tom De Koning, we targeted him because he wasn't getting much opportunity as a solo ruck, but now he is, and he's the most informed ruckman in the competition. And then we also saw who else was it? Oh, yeah, Tristan Cherry. He was stuck behind Goldstein. We went after him I think a couple years back. North wanted a second rounder. We didn't pay up, and now he's established himself as probably a top 5 ruckman in the comp. So there's definitely a lot of value in these types of young depth ruckmen around in the comp. We just have to identify the talent and bring it in, which is why, and it also suits our age profile a bit more. Like, these types of ruckmen are usually around 22 to 25 when they are developing, stuck behind a primary ruckman. They're ready for AFL level, but they just can't get a look in because most teams only play 1 or 2 rucks, and they're ultimately the third ruck, the project ruck, that can't get a look in. So we just have to identify the talent. There's players like Liam Reedy at Fremantle. There's Vicentini at Port Adelaide. I can't name any others off the top of my head, but there's definitely a few more. Lachlan McAndrew from the Swans. So there's definitely a few options there for us to consider if Marshall was to leave. But as I said, I think it's pretty unlikely. But if it does happen, there's definitely, it's not all doom and gloom. There's definitely something we can do with that. So yeah, that's what I think of that situation. I think we can get some draft capital in for Marshall, get a cheap ruckman in to take his spot. Hopefully Heath also develops a bit and could potentially take that role. But yeah, to get the draft capital in to really hit the draft while we still can before Tassie, I think could be pretty beneficial to our list build. But yeah, enough of Marshall talk. I think he's very likely to stay. I think there's not much to worry about there. But yeah, there's going to be a lots of list turnover over the next 4 years. So this is to prepare us for a sustained premiership window and not just some random 3-year period where we go well, maybe hit a grand final and just fall off completely. The main goal, which is why it's taking so long, is to have a sustained run, and that's what I think a lot of supporters are missing. They want, because understandably, after waiting for so long, you want instant success. But with new not new management, but new coaches, new staff, new relatively new CEO and president with Bassett, they're going to have their own ideas. They're going to want to implement them in their own way. They won't consider what's happened in the past. They're in fresh minds, so they're going to have to implement their own ideas, and it takes time for that to settle. So we're just going to have to be a bit more patient, but the reward, if this works in the end, will be very fruitful. So yeah, I think the main issue with this list is just that middle 25 to 28 year old part, but I think our youth is very, very impressive at the moment. So there's definitely a lot to like with that. So that's part 4 done. Took a long time. We're already an hour and 13 minutes in, but I'll keep talking if you guys want to keep listening. I'll look at some Instagram questions now. So I'll just get it up really quickly. So I think there was a few questions about the draft, so we'll start by talking about that while I search for all the questions. So I touched on it before, but the draft main targets: Jagger Smith, Sid Draper, and Sam Layla for our top pick. In the second round, it's a bit more interesting because it's so even, and the draft is so deep that there's going to be a lot of volatility with the rankings around there. So it's really hard to tell at the moment who we could be targeting. Harvey Langford looks like he could be a solid tall winger or midfielder. Kind of could be a replacement for Mason Wood in the long term, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. Toby Travaglia, speedy mid. I think a lot of you guys might remember Cooper Simpson from last year. A lot of us wanted to get him as like a speedy mid forward. That's what Travaglia kind of is compared to, in my opinion. So he's that type of player. And then there's some talls as well. I can't remember his name. There's like a ruckman. He's the leading ruck prospect in this year's draft, and he could be around the second round or the late first round. So he would have to be sliding to our pick, which is Adelaide's second round pick, tied to Adelaide. But it is our pick because of the trade that saw the Giants take Leak, and then we took Wilson. Any other draft prospects? I think that's about it. Obviously, I think our main, the dream pick for us at pick 5 would probably be Finn O'Sullivan, but I think he's almost certain to go in the top 3. But yeah, Smith is a very good player. He accumulates a lot of the ball, which is what we need in that midfield. We have Clark and Dow, but they don't really accumulate. They win clearances, and are pretty damaging, but they don't really win the ball too much on the outside. So to get Jagger would be very nice. But yeah, Layla, obviously that Dusty comparison is very tempting. And then Draper, like similar to Dangerfield, Horn Francis, that type of player, bursts from the front of stoppage, can hit scoreboard, wins clearances, wins them very well as well, and bursts from stoppage. So that's someone we might target. So yeah, those are the top 3. And then there's also the next generation academy players. So Adrian Cole is probably the most enticing one as a key defender. Athletic. Last year he was like 197 centimeters, so he's probably grown a bit more and could be 200 centimeters plus now. So if we could get him, that would be, and if he could develop very well, that would be very nice for us. He's been named in the Vic Metro side this weekend. I'm not sure exactly when the game is and whether it's after I upload this video, but if it's on after I upload this, make sure to go watch it for Adrian Cole, or at least watch like highlights or something for him, because he could be a very exciting prospect for us that we could get for cheap, and he turns into a gun player, so keep an eye on him. Lennox Hoffman, he was in the Vic Metro side, but he got dropped this week. He played okay. I think he's a halfback midfielder type of player, can play wing. He got around like 15 touches, I think, on last weekend, so not the best, most exciting prospect, but he's a leader. I think he's the vice captain or something. So yeah, he's definitely one to look out for. There's the father-son guys, Boston, Everett, and Elwood Peckett. I think Peckett's the more likely one there, but he'd probably be a late rookie pick. And then Everett, I think he's fallen off the face of the earth. I've not seen him anywhere, so I think he's very unlikely to get drafted. He isn't the height of his father, so that's a bit of a shame. But I think there's another guy, what's his name? Sam Linder, halfback as well. He's shown some good promise. Hasn't been selected in the championships, but has been going okay in the talent league. So he's another one of those who could be selected as a rookie. But I think Hoffman and Cole are still the two guys that we'll pick, and then the others might be like an SSP type of project. I think that's all for the draft, so I'll start talking about some of these questions. So we've got a question about Rowe. So Rowan Marshall potentially leaving, a report from Mitch Cleary and Sam McClure on the Tradies podcast. So there's been rumours about him. It's a very big call, but potentially him not liking the culture of the club. I don't know. I have a lot of doubt about that report, about that rumour, but it has been put out there, so just something for everyone to keep in mind. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's just the losing culture at the moment. That's what it would be referring to. So as soon as we turn the results around, I think Marsh will be happy again, but yeah, obviously you can't guess and assume these things, so we'll just have to wait and see on him. I think time will tell what happens with him. He's contracted until 2027, I think, so yeah, we have a lot of leverage there, and I think we'll be able to hold him to his contract. He's been a very good servant of our club. We invested in him very much in his early career, so I'm sure he'll be able to invest back into us. Best draft picks for us, I've mentioned that. When will Saints make finals and top 4 again? The plan is 2026 beyond. That'll be probably genuine finals contention. I think we can make finals potentially next year, but that depends on what approach we take with the list at the end of this year. But I think 2026 is when we will make the 8, and then beyond that, the 4, and hopefully grand finals. But that's being overly optimistic as a Saints fan. In the likely case we lose battle, can you see Ari taking over his spot second tall, or do we recruit one? I think Ari has a lot to work on with his defensive craft after watching him all year in the VFL. Obviously he's a very good kick, and he's learning a lot with the defence with Enright. He showed some good signs against Brisbane. He took some intercept marks, made some solid spoils, but you can tell that he's very inexperienced, so I think we'll probably pick up someone on the cheap. I mentioned Butts earlier in this video, so he's definitely someone we'll probably consider. And how, I think we'll definitely get someone, because Howard will need replacing as well. So even if Showermaker does establish himself in that battle position, the trade-in replacement would eventually be able to replace Howard as well. So yeah, I think we'll get someone, and I do have faith that Ari will be able to take a third tall spot next year. Wilkie to move more into a centre half back position. But yeah, hopefully ideal scenario is that we get someone like a Butts, free up Dougal to play as a second tall, Wilkie as a third tall, Ari to play as a half back, not as a key defender. In that Bonner position, so we'll have 7 defenders, so 6 on the field, 1 on the bench. The 3 key defenders I mentioned, Sinclair, Naz, and then Showermaker as well. Wait, am I missing someone? I'm missing someone. Oh, and then Webster, sorry, we have Webster as well as their lockdown medium defender. So that's the way I want to see it. Naz might get moved to the wing, depending on how things go, but for now that's what I see happening in the future. Trade talk, I've mentioned that, yeah, I don't think we'll engage too much in the trade period, but we'll definitely go hard at the draft and free agency. The future of the club, yeah, I've talked about that. That's probably the high point of our season so far, is this young core coming through. I think, yeah, Van Ness is the one I want to see take the next step next year. We know, I think all of us know how good, Naz, Owens, Windy, Henry, Wilson can all be. Van Ness is the one I want to see succeed, because he's very important to our future if he can get his body right. Keeler, McLennan, Houghton, that 2022 crop, I think had a lot of upside when they were first drafted. I think they still do. They just need to get a clean run at it. So hopefully later half of this year and next year they still have an opportunity to prove themselves and improve. Try to identify the weaknesses in our team and see how we could address in the second half. So yeah, I spoke about this with respect to the game plan section. So attacking from defensive half has been very promising. It's just our forward half connection, and we've worked on that. Kicking from outside 70, I explained that already. So making sure we don't take silly kicks from outside 70 meters inside 50 for shallow entries. Make sure we take it from within 50 to 70 meters, either go deep inside 50 or hit up a leading target around 30 to 50 meters. I think that's the main issue. We need the skill to execute that, so that's why Henry's been moved into the midfield at times. Clark has been a very crucial component. Even though he's not the biggest accumulator, he delivers the ball good. That's what we need in that midfield. So yeah, that's what I think the weakness is. Josh Battle contract, player retention, Max Heath's potential. So Battle's contract, I think he's more likely to leave at this stage. Contract, I spoke about them, the 5 guys who are already in discussions. Player retention, yeah, I think that's related to the previous 2 topics. And then Heath, yeah, I'm bullish on Heath. I think he's developed really well as a solo ruck at VFL level, so we'll just have to see how he continues to progress through there. I think as solo ruck, when he gets that opportunity, he really thrives in there without Campbell. So that's something that I think we need to pursue a bit more. Play Campbell forward a bit more, and let Heath take the bulk of the ruck responsibilities in the VFL. And then hopefully at some stage in the second half of this year, we'll see Heath and Marshall play together at AFL level. Our list, what we should be planning to do over the next 12 months, some analysis and opinion. Yeah, I've done plenty of that over this video, so just rewind back to the overall plan and the part 3, the list. You'll hear everything I've said about that. Summary is just, I think we need to top up the 24 to 28 age bracket in our list, and then get some more youth in, and follow that Collingwood 2023 model. Battle's contract with the Hawks, we talked about that. State of our list, realistically, who's going to be at the club for our flag tilt. I think I've discussed that in part 4, which is the overall plan. Future trade draft prospects, what holes do we need to fill? Also list analysis, who isn't. Yeah, I've talked about that as well in part 3 and part 4. Players we are targeting, Stengel, LDU, those are the confirmed targets. And then hopefully backup ruck, and then a key defender as well, someone like a Butts. Who is the dark horse or most underrated player at Saints? How Saints prevent spiral of self-destruct. So dark horse, most underrated player, probably Heath, to be honest. I've banged on about him all, and maybe Sharman as well. I think he's got a lot of promise too. I think Filippo's potential's kind of being underrated as well. I think people are starting to doubt him a bit too much. He's just taking time to develop his game, and I think he'll come on very quickly when he's ready. And then how Saints prevent spiral of self-destruct. That's a good, interesting question. Spiral of self-destruct. Just stick to the plan. Don't panic. Don't do what we did in 2020 and trade for targets to try and fast track the rebuild, because that obviously didn't work. We need to stick to the plan. Be very careful with what we do. Very diligent. Yeah, the plan: 24-25 draft, 23-24 draft, 25-26. Free agency and trade. We need to stick with that, and then target a premiership from 2026, 2027 beyond. Liam O'Connell playing VFL, how he's going. He's developing well. He's not getting huge numbers, but he's improving his understanding of the game. He's shown some good stuff. Like in his first couple of games, he was really good, but I think he's started to like buy into team defense more rather than like himself getting the ball and stuff. So his numbers are getting lower, but he's buying into the structure more. And I think he's just a project that will have on in the background. He's very far off a debut at the moment, so I think this is a thing us fans should start considering late next year rather than this year. I think we'll just let him develop at VFL level for now. How we would replace Battle and or Marshall. I spoke about that. So Battle, hopefully we trade in someone and send Dougal to centre half back. Someone like a Butts at fullback for Battle, and then free up Dougal. And then to replace Marshall, a younger ruck, a recycled ruck, isn't a big issue for a premiership tilt. What's going on with our attack? I've talked about that a lot, so just rewind and you'll see, like probably at the start of this Q&A I talked about it, so just rewind to there. Draft targets, I talked about that. Rowan, whether he's going to stay, and if not, who do we get? Spoke about that. Should we continue doing a rebuild until Tasmania comes in? Not until Tasmania comes in, that's way too long. But for the next couple of years, we won't see us like go all in on a premiership. That will be beyond 2026. Draft trade to maximize our hand going into the draft, finishing depending on finishing spot. Yeah, so pick 5 is the most likely. I think we'll finish in 14th, which yields us pick 5. Pick 6 for Battle compensation, and then yeah, I think then we have Adelaide's second round pick, which would be without all the other benefits around 23, 22, 23, and then I think North Melbourne have 2 end of first round picks, or 1. So I think it'll be around 26, 27 would be the Adelaide pick. So if Battle leaves, we'll have 5, 6, and like late 20s pick. But I think we'll do some trades around that, definitely. Steele's captaincy. Okay, I haven't spoken about this yet. I think Steele should. I think next year, I'm on the boat that Wilkie needs to be captain. Steele just needs to focus on his game, getting his body right, because he's so important to our success. When he's fully firing, he elevates our team to the next level. So I just don't think the captaincy is good for him. He isn't a very verbal captain as well. I want to see a verbal captain in our team. I think Ross Lyon would probably want to see that as well. Rewalt was very verbal. At the Dockers, I think he had Pavlich, who was also very verbal. So I think Wilkie should be captain. He sees the entire ground from defence, so he, as the leader, would be able to see everything and will be able to instruct everyone. Steele very much would probably get distracted as the captain of a midfield. So yeah, I think Wilkie should be captain, but we'll see how that goes in the off-season. The position that needs the most work is the midfield. Scapegoats from Dukes to Bonner. I think Howard is getting crucified for no reason. I think he's been doing well this year. Bonner, I'm not the biggest fan of him, I'll admit that. I mentioned earlier, I don't think he's best 22. I think he's depth at best. So when Naz comes back next week against Port Adelaide, I want to see Bonner dropped and not Ari. Okay, that's what I want to see. That's exactly what I want. That's the most important thing to me at the moment, is to see Bonner dropped. Just talk about the direction of our club. Josh Battle potentially leaving kills me. Yeah, I've already talked about that. Just rewind. The listings at season's end, potential signings, and what game style we need to play with. So these are all of our out of contract players in this year. So there's 20 of them. I think we re-signed McLennan. Patterns of question mark. So I don't know. Depends on how he goes in the second half of the season and what our other list changes are. If he's surplus to requirements, I think he's gone. Sharman, Butler, Howard, Keeler were all re-signed. I think I'm pretty confident in that. Hayes, I think, is gone. His injuries are just too much, and we have Heath coming through. Van Ness, I think, will get another year. Key defenders are hard to come by. We've put 2 years of development into him. We probably won't draft another one this year, so might as well hold on to Van Ness, because I think he has potential at this level. Webster will re-sign, but Battle, well, ideally he re-signs or he leaves for Compo. Stocker, I think, will re-sign. Wood will. I think Allison's gone. Hall, I think he's more to the safe side, but still a question mark. Heath, I think he's safe. Houghton, question mark. I think we'll keep one of Hall and Houghton, just depending on which one we want to keep. Bonner, I think, will re-sign. I wouldn't re-sign him, but I think Ross really likes him, so I think he'll re-sign. Burns, Ross, Membry, ideally are gone. Jones, ideally, I think Jones is finished. Like, I don't think he's going to come back. And then Campbell, depends on how Heath develops over the rest of the season. So those are my thoughts on the listings. Potential signings, I've talked about that. Game style, stick with the current game plan, just execute it a bit better. That's what my thoughts are there. Update on our on-con, yeah, I've done that. Discussions about our list. Age demographic to show how much we're prioritizing youth. Yeah, I've talked about that. I think the youth is the most important part of our list at the moment. Potential signings and departures, talked about that. Player development issues, I don't think that's much of an issue anymore. A lot of our development issues at the moment are because of injury, like Keeler, Van Ness, Houghton are the biggest issues with our development at the moment, and that's because they've been injured almost the entire time. Filippo is, I think at the start it was a bit questionable how we were developing him, but now he's playing extended midfield time at VFL level. I think he's starting to come on. Caminiti, Owens, Windhager, Naz speak for themselves. They're doing very well. Caminiti's as a key forward, they take longer. He's only 20 years old and he's averaging a goal a game, so very impressive. Allison's the big issue. I think he just doesn't have the natural, well, I don't want to be too hard on him, but I just don't see the natural talent in him. He's a very, very good athlete, like very elite athlete. He just doesn't get his hands on the ball enough, and he doesn't know how to position himself, so he just doesn't have that natural AFL football instinct. Burns, I think we've gotten the most out of him as a pick 52. He's got his limitations, his kicking, his size, but yeah, I think we've done okay with him. He's a good depth player. King is probably a big issue with development as well, but that's just, I think he's developing well. He just like doesn't get the delivery from the midfield, so that's the main issue there. The other, yeah, I think our development isn't an issue. It's just injuries, and then our inability to execute as a whole team rather than as individuals. Covering Battle and Marshall, talked about that. Thoughts on Ryan Burns and Ben Patton's future? Hopefully at the end of the year our team is good enough to move on from both of them. I think Burns gets another year. Oh, actually no, I don't think Burns will hold. Patton I think is, I don't know actually, no, it's very hard to tell between these two. Like, I would personally keep Patton and play him a bit more, but especially with Webster's availability issues, but Ross doesn't seem like a big fan of him, so he could be done at the end of this year. And then Burns, yeah, I've spoken about his limitations, so I'm not sure about him. Ron wanting to leave, I've spoken about that. And then who needs to go? Needs to be harsh if you want to build a top team. I agree, which is why I made that diagram. And I think, yeah, well, if we want to be harsh, like Patton's gone, Houghton's gone, Campbell's gone, Bonner's borderline, Heath is probably borderline. That's harsh. But yeah, I think this is what I think anyways what will happen. Just the question marks is to be determined later on. But those are all the questions. So it was around like 20 of them, 30 of them. I think I've gone through everything. So if I somehow missed your question, despite me covering every single one I saw, apologies. But everything should have been covered in general in the overall presentation. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think we'll leave it there. I've been going for like almost 2 hours, an hour and a half, so this is going to be a lot longer than I expected. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'm a bit tired now, but yeah, if you want to rewatch anything, I've segmented hopefully every single section of the video, so hopefully you guys all enjoyed. Yeah, hope we all enjoy the rest of the season. It's going to be a tough watch, especially if we decide to start playing the kids, but as I discussed, like, there's still a lot to look forward to in the years to come. It's another few years in the waiting for some success, but we just have to stick with it, stick with the plan, with this new wave, like new players, new coaches, new staff. We just have to stick with it, have faith in them. This list looks good, just needs a bit of tweaking in this middle part, and then I think we look pretty set. So definitely not all doom and gloom, not the best though, so we'll just have to wait and see on that. So hope you guys enjoyed this kind of podcasty type of video. Apologies if it was boring, like I started rambling a lot, so I'm not sure how enjoyable this was, but it was fun for me to discuss all these topics with you guys. So yeah, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.